One question I frequently get asked is, what are the common mistakes I need to avoid when storing food for emergencies? You've dedicated time and resources to building your emergency supplies, but are you certain your methods will stand up to the test of time? Despite the wealth of information available online, many preppers still wonder if they're getting it right. Are you storing the right foods in the right way? Look, we all make mistakes, but when it comes to survival, preparation is key. Successful long-term food storage requires a well-thought-out system that considers the container, the environment, the rotation practices, and the type of food itself. It's not just about hoarding cans. It's about understanding how to make your supplies last. In this video, I'm going to explain the 5 most common mistakes in food storage, explaining why each error matters and how to avoid it. Surviving in the wild is about adapting and overcoming, and that includes knowing how to properly store your food to weather any storm. Here are the 5 mistakes to avoid when creating emergency food storage. The first mistake I see people making is treating their emergency food stockpile like a museum exhibit, untouchable and reserved only for the apocalypse. What good is food if it's inedible by the time you need it? You should be eating from your pantry and then restocking it. Cycle through your supplies, using the oldest first and replenishing with fresh stock. This is crucial for perishable items like grains, beans, and even canned goods. Integrating your stored food into your regular meals is practical and familiarizes you with your supplies. Surviving isn't just about having food, it's about having food that nourishes you and keeps you going. Make your supplies a regular part of your life to stay prepared and make the most of your resources. The second mistake a lot of preppers make is not being aware or practicing FIFO rotation and expiration management. That means first in, first out. Assuming that properly stored food is going to remain edible indefinitely, they neglect to implement a first in, first out system. And this can result in wasted food, nutritional loss, or even spoilage as items languish past their prime. Now, I've been in situations where I'd give anything for a decent meal, let alone worry about expiration dates. But in a long-term survival scenario, maximizing the lifespan of your supplies is paramount. It's about resource management, plain and simple. Think of it like building a fire in the wilderness. You use the driest tinder first to ignite the larger logs. The same principle applies to your food storage. Use the oldest items first to prevent waste and ensure you're always consuming the freshest food available. Maintaining a FIFO system might seem tedious, but it's a simple habit that can make a world of difference. When you restock your pantry, move the older items to the front and the newer ones to the back. This way, you're constantly cycling through your supplies and minimizing the risk of spoilage. Another crucial aspect of FIFO is understanding expiration dates. While some foods, like honey or salt, have an almost indefinite shelf life, others are more perishable. Pay attention to the best buy or use by dates on your packaged goods and prioritize using those approaching their limits. Even properly stored food has a shelf life. Don't let your hard work go to waste by neglecting FIFO rotation. It's a simple yet effective strategy that can make a significant difference in a survival situation. By being mindful of your supplies and using the oldest first, you're ensuring that you're always consuming the freshest and most nutritious food available. The third mistake some preppers make is not properly sealing the food they package and put away. Food purchased in bulk sometimes can't all be consumed within the expiration timeline. For example, freeze-dried or vacuum-sealed dry materials may have had the moisture and air removed during the packaging process, giving them an extraordinarily long expiration date. Once opened, though, that date no longer applies. Out in the wild, protecting your food from the elements and scavengers is crucial. The same goes for your emergency supplies, albeit with different threats. Moisture, air, pests, these can all wreak havoc on your carefully stored food, rendering it inedible and diminishing your chances of survival. Think of it like building a shelter in the wild. You wouldn't leave gaps in your roof or walls, would you? That's an invitation for rain, wind, and animals to wreak havoc. The same principle applies to your food storage. Proper sealing is your first line of defense. One of the biggest culprits of food spoilage is air exposure. Oxygen can cause oxidation, leading to rancidity, mold growth, and nutrient loss. To combat this, invest in airtight containers for your dry goods like grains, beans, pasta, and sugar. These containers create a barrier against moisture and pests, extending the shelf life of your food considerably. Another crucial aspect of proper storage is temperature control. Heat and humidity are the enemies of long-term food storage. Store your supplies in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight and heat sources. A basement, cellar, or even a dedicated pantry shelf can provide the ideal environment. Proper storage is not just about keeping your food edible, it's about preserving its nutritional value. By taking the time to store your supplies correctly, you're ensuring that they'll provide you with the sustenance you need when it matters most. The fourth mistake is where you actually store your food. Unfortunately, most modern kitchens aren't designed with very large pantry spaces, and if you live in an apartment, you might not even have a pantry, just a few cabinets. This ends up leading some people to repurpose space in their garage for their emergency supplies. Now, I've slept in some pretty rough spots, inside animal carcasses hanging off cliffs, but I always try to find the most secure and protected location possible. The same applies to your food storage. Your garage, while convenient, can be subject to extreme temperatures, pests, and even flooding. Think about it. A scorching summer day can turn your garage into an oven, while a winter freeze can leave your supplies vulnerable to frost damage. Pests like rodents and insects are also drawn to garages, and a leaky roof or a burst pipe can spell disaster for your carefully stored food. Instead of relying solely on your garage, consider diversifying your storage locations. Utilize the space under your beds, invest in shelves for closets, or even designate a corner of your living room for discrete storage containers. The key is to think outside the traditional pantry and find creative solutions that work for your living space. Remember, accessibility is crucial in an emergency. You don't want to be rummaging through a cluttered garage during a power outage or a natural disaster. Choose storage locations that are easily accessible and well organized so you can quickly locate and retrieve the supplies you need. By diversifying your storage locations and prioritizing accessibility, you're creating a more resilient and practical system for your emergency food supplies. One of the critical mistakes preppers often make is failing to account for water required to prepare, cook, or even eat their stored foods. Many emergency foods, such as dehydrated or freeze-dried meals, require substantial water for rehydration and cooking. You can often eat them without rehydration, but the consumed food will pull water from your digestive system to hydrate and digest the food. Out in the wild, water is essential for survival. It's not just about quenching your thirst, it's about staying hydrated, cooking food, and maintaining hygiene. The same principle applies to a disaster scenario. You may have a stockpile of food, but without adequate water, your options for preparing and consuming it become severely limited. Imagine trekking through the desert, your canteen running low, and all you have are dehydrated meals. You quickly realize that without sufficient water, those meals are as good as useless. That's why planning for water needs to be just as important as planning for food. When building your emergency food supply, consider the water requirements for each item. Dehydrated meals, rice, beans, and pasta all require significant amounts of water for cooking. Factor in this additional water usage when calculating your overall water storage needs. It's also crucial to have a reliable water purification method. Boiling water is effective, but it requires fuel and time. Invest in a water filter or purifier that can remove bacteria, viruses, and other contaminants from questionable water sources. Water is not just for drinking, it's essential for preparing and consuming your food safely. By factoring in water requirements and having a reliable purification method, you're ensuring that you can make the most of your food supplies, no matter the situation. So there you have it, the top 5 food storage mistakes to avoid. By following these tips, you'll be well on your way to building a resilient and sustainable food supply for any situation. Preparation is key, and knowing how to properly store your food is an essential part of being prepared. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to post those below. I'm always here to help you on your journey to preparedness. Share your own food storage tips and tricks in the comments section below. Let's learn from each other and build a stronger community.